Surprise, y'all! It has been a long time since I did any kind of personal podcasting project, but I wanted to do this in lieu of a vlog or like a traditional vlog, mostly because I can't get the setup done properly. I don't have a good camera or microphone to do a vlog, so we're just going to do a podcast instead. But I wanted to make this episode to talk a little bit about Camp NaNoWriMo, which I will be participating in April. So that means that I have realistically 2 days left for March, because I'm recording this March 29th. I have 2 days left to do what's called Prep-Arch, or Preparation March, I guess. This is a thing that's run by the folks who do NaNoWriMo, or National Novel Writing Month. They'll do twice a year a thing called Camp NaNoWriMo, where instead of itching for 50,000 words on a totally new idea, the Camp NaNoWriMos are for ideas that you either have a draft for already or for differently counted word counts towards projects or whatever you want to use it for. For April, I want to use this chance to work on a comic script that I had written apparently back in 2015 called The Uthers, and that's The Uthers spelled Uthers. For folks who have been following my comic stuff for a really long time, they may recognize that title, but it's been a hot minute since you heard it. Way back in 2015, 2016, I had written a post saying that depending on how the election of that year went, I would either start working on The Uthers or The Legend of Jamie Roberts. And I had originally announced that I was going to work on The Uthers, but when I looked at the script, I went, I need to set this aside, and also, we need a project that's going to have a little bit more hope to it. And I'll get to the particulars about The Uthers in a second, but with The Legend of Jamie Roberts, for one thing, that webcomic launched back in 2018. For another thing, it's been going strong since then. Also, it's about a genderqueer pirate and their two best friends treasure hunting in a land full of dragons. So I figured that story was more necessary then. Certainly now, with all of the anti-trans legislations that's on the tables here in the United States. And I'm not going to stop making that, for sure. But for Camp NaNoWriMo, I want to revisit the script that I had written for The Uthers and do some editing on it, because I had read chapter 1, and while there are strong parts about it, there's parts that I could fix. The Uthers is the story of an autistic young adult named Riley. She's looking for the cyborg who killed her father. And the reason for that is because she had a hand in building this cyborg. The story of The Uthers follows 3 separate characters on 3 separate paths. The first path is Riley. The second path is the cyborg, codenamed Nautilus. The third path is actually Gunter, a half-human, half-other detective who's trying to piece together what the heck is going on here. And eventually, the paths of these 3 characters will meet towards the middle end or towards the end. Now, a couple of things about the draft in its current iteration. This is the first draft. I will be revisiting it for Camp NaNoWriMo to do edits. The other thing is, it is way shorter than I remember it being. I thought that it was like upwards of 18 chapters. It's actually 12. And when I look back on it, I recall that the ending that I had given it was very abrupt. So probably during the editing process, the story will stretch out a bit. Not just for atmosphere, but also to maybe develop some characters a little bit more. But we'll figure that out when I actually read the draft and see how things are working out or not working out. Part of the editing process is seeing what's not working and fixing it. The other objective that I want to achieve with editing this is not just padding out what needs padded or trimming out what needs trimmed. It's also seeing how I can improve the atmosphere of this particular story. Now that it's, as of this recording, 2022, and there has been some shit that has gone down, historically speaking. That's going to taint a few things about this current draft of the Others, and I would like to apologize if the sound of my upstairs neighbors stomping around is coming through on the microphone. There's a number of things that I want to do to improve the atmosphere of this particular story. Realistically, it's just going to look like taking things that have already happened in the culture of the United States from 2020 to 2022 and just turning it up to the nth degree. But it could also be a number of other things too. That said, when this second draft of the story gets done, and the goal is to get the second draft done by April 30th, when that second draft is done, I'll let it sit for a bit to give it some space. But after that, I do want to reach out to some sensitivity readers because there are going to be some perspectives in this story that I do not have. Riley is not going to be that hard for me to write because Riley is an autistic main character, and a little bit of honesty here, I was diagnosed as autistic at the age of 4, so this is something that I've lived with my entire life. In that vein, something that I wanted to touch on with this story, with all 3 main characters, was the idea of all 3 main characters feeling like they are alien in this world that is already so unsettling and not built for them. Riley's example is obvious because the world is not built for autistic people at all. Nautilus's example, that's the cyborg character. He's an outlier because in this story, at least in this current draft, the cyborgs are all political prisoners who have been converted into cyborgs as punishment for being political. And they are sent to basically a gladiatorial arena to fight for the others' amusement. Nautilus did not get that far. He did not make it to the gladiator arena. He's out and doing his own thing. And Gunter, the detective character, is very out of place, he feels, because he's half human, half other, in a world where there are very clear social and economic distinctions between the 2 races. To be clear, he is not a product of love. So a part of the reason I'm going to look for sensitivity readers is because Gunter's storyline touches on some really uncomfortable things, particularly mothers who are forced to keep their rape babies. Yes, we're going there with this story. The other things that are going to be touched on in this story include violence perpetrated against people of color, because a good chunk of the humans in this story are going to be people of color for reasons. And some of that includes trans women of color, which is a perspective that I obviously do not have because while I am non-binary, I am a white, of Irish Scottish descent, but still by American definition, I am white. So I don't have that perspective. When the time comes for sensitivity readers, I will be reaching out and asking for those kinds of perspectives to make sure that this story still has a little bit of hope to it and is not touching into really harmful tropes. I don't want to touch into harmful tropes with this story. I want it to, as hokey as it is, yes, there's going to be some darkness to this. Obviously, one of the main characters is a product of rape who is still alive and has to contend with this reality. That does things to a psyche. But with that and an autistic main character and another main character who's basically a convict, I still want to explore what it means to have some element of hope in a world that desperately wants you to not have any. And that's why I want to revisit this story with the Others. And that's why I want to tackle it for Camp NaNoWriMo. Now, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. So, up to this point, I've been doing live streams every Tuesday and Saturday on YouTube and Twitch. I want to change that up for April so that I can focus more on doing these revisions during Camp NaNoWriMo. However, I still want to keep y'all clued in, so as a kind of compromise, but also a way to clue you in on how things are going, I'm going to make some, if I can make it work, YouTube videos. If I can't get it to work, these are just going to be audio podcasts to update you on how things are going. The podcasting thing is probably going to be the easiest thing to do because I already have everything set up for that and I'm already part of a podcast, so I know what I'm doing in that regard. For YouTube videos, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I got to get figured out to make that happen, but hopefully I can make that happen by the time the next update happens. I don't know what the update schedule for these podcasts is going to be, but I will say these will occur throughout April to let you know how the writing project is going. I hope you're looking forward to it. I look forward to talking a little bit more about the story as stuff happens and let you know how the writing process is going, what it's like to do revisions. If that sounds interesting to you, I hope you stay tuned. Oh, further updates on anything will be at kelseydcrawford.com. That's KELCID Crawford.com. That's all I got. Thanks for listening. You are awesome.